specific.
One that people are excited about. This webinar is going to be recorded today and will be shared on our YouTube channel after the presentation, so you'll be able to access it at a later time. Please put questions in the chat for our presenters as we go, and we'll share that reminder a few times as folks are joining the call. I'm going to go ahead and start a couple of introductions and of the folks in the room. And we will have time for a Q&A for this session as well, which will happen at the end of the call. Okay, so let's see. We have a big group with us today, and we're very excited to bring you this important discussion on developing the workforce for a reimagined child welfare system. I am Stephanie Anderson. I am the manager of the Clark Fox Policy Institute, and I'll be your webinar host today, just helping out in our partnership with the Academy on this webinar series. We also have joining us today Diane DePanfilis. She is the Senior Associate Dean for Research and Professor at the Silberman School of Social Work at Hunter College, and also works with the ACS Office of Training and Workforce Development. We also have her community partners joining us today, Cheryl Beeman, the Associate Commissioner with the ACS Office of Training and Workforce Development, and Alexis Howard, Project Director at the Silberman School and partner with the office as well. From our team here with the Academy and the 21st Century Research Agenda, we also are joined by Peter Pecora, Managing Director of Research Services for Casey Family Programs and a fellow with the Academy. Alex Maldonado with the 21st Century Research Agenda. Nicholas Asher, a program coordinator with the Academy, and Mary McKay, former president of the Academy and vice provost of interdisciplinary initiatives at Washington University in St. Louis, here with me. Also joining us today to facilitate our Q&A is Dr. Michael Lindsay, the Dean of the School of Social Work and also president of the Academy. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to actually hand it over to Peter now, who's going to share a little bit more about the agenda, the 21st Century Research Agenda, and I will also share, if I can get our slides to advance, the rest of the webinars that are coming up in this ongoing series.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's great to have up as background. Just a little bit of history here. Since about May of 2019, a diverse group of researchers, DEI experts, people with lived experience with the child welfare system, and policy experts have been working together to identify research gaps that might inform the development of a 21st century approach to a child and family well-being system in the United States. And what began as a partnership between Casey Family Programs, the Annie E. Casey Foundation, and the William T. Grant Foundation has sort of grown and evolved into a wider coalition of academic, national, and philanthropic organizations. And that work has been bolstered and informed by the involvement of people with lived experience in child welfare from day one all the way through. We believe that new studies in the field really do have to address, with this precious funding that we have, the most critical issues. And we want to try and nurture, and this webinar is an example of that, how do we help get research findings used to support innovative policy practice and, inform the funding streams? So currently, the National Research Agenda Coalition is encouraging federal, state, and local foundations to address these high priority gap areas. And we're really trying to promote conversations in a few areas. And some of the topics I'll just mention briefly is we really want to help the research community see study participants and the local community members as partners in the research. And that's part of our field's prioritization and commitment to social justice. It's just the right way to do our research work. We think that stakeholder involvement will really help researchers focus on the most critical issues, especially if that involvement of community members and people with lived expertise is funded adequately so that the researchers have the adequate team support they need to do that work. We think participation by community members and people with lived expertise in the actual development of the study design and questions does lay the groundwork for conducting these studies in a more ethical manner. And we found through the years more effectively, because the community members can help spot challenges right at the outset that the researchers are going to have to navigate. And to that end, some cultural experts and people with lived expertise on our team have just produced an equity planning tool that we'll make sure is sent out after the webinar, if that hasn't been sent out, or it could be sent out as a follow-up. And this is an equity tool to help you in a program planning or a research planning effort that you might be involved in, just to see if you in a sense, you're paying attention to how to do that work in a really skillful and a very efficient manner. So it's a 3-page checklist. We're finding that people are finding it very, very useful in their work. It's all this type of stuff is this work is really to help ensure that the research that we're conducting is meeting the needs of not only the researchers, but the children, the families, and the community and provider organizations that we're working with. So as you can hear from my remarks this morning, we're trying to improve how research is done while we get more studies funded in the 23 high priority child welfare gap areas that this initiative has developed. If you want more information, there's a 5-page initiative overview that was probably emailed to you or could be emailed again. And we'll put up in the chat the website link that has the equity planning tool, the equity assessment tool, and the other products. I'll put that in the chat in a minute. We really want to thank you for investing your time today with us, and a real special thanks to the speakers today. I think Mary's now going to provide a few words of orientation and welcome, and then we'll jump right into the webinar. Thanks again.
So Peter, you thank so many people and acknowledge them, but I want to acknowledge you and your leadership. So I'm Mary McKay, and I have the privilege of welcoming you on behalf of the Academy, although I feel funny about doing that because of the president of the Academy is here, Michael Lindsay. So let me acknowledge that. Let me also say that Peter and Diane, you are examples of the kind of scholars and researchers that are building new knowledge, but in partnership with others. And so I'm so excited to hear about the collaborative work that you're going to present to us today. It's been a real privilege to be on contribute to the steering committee of the 21st Century Research Agenda. Nicholas, thank you, and Sanjam for organizing this webinar series. In the chat, Nicholas has already put the 5-page summary that Peter referred to. Also, our last webinar in the series is focused on the DEI tool that Peter talked about, and you'll hear from steering committee members about its use and some of the ways that it has improved what they've been doing in their collaborative work. So it's been a real privilege to sponsor this series on the Academy, and without further ado, I'm going to really kind of turn it over to Diane, you and colleagues. I'm super excited about hearing about your work, and thank you all for being here. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, everybody, and thanks for the amazing welcome. We appreciate it. The way that we put this together is you'll see the members of the panel, myself, Cheryl Beeman, and Alexis Howard. We won't go into further introductions since we already had that for us, but you'll see us go back and forth between who speaks on what area. And hopefully there'll be enough time for questions. And thank you, Professor Lindsay, Dean Lindsay, for being the Q&A facilitator. That will be very helpful. So I'm going to turn it to Cheryl, and she's going to kick us off with one of the ways that we reimagine child welfare in New York City.
Yes, thank you, Diane. And it's through this wonderful partnership that we in the Office of Training and Workforce Development, which is in the division of ACS of Policy Planning and Measurements, have had the impact of helping to reimagine child welfare. And so over the past 8 years, we, through our work with our partners, the New York State Office of Children and Family Services, just to provide context, in New York State, we're a county administrated state oversight, along with our federal partners, have implemented and looked at how do we evolve child welfare from everywhere from our prevention programs with the institution of evidence-based programs to our foster care program with the introduction of enhanced foster care, family foster care, which is therapeutic care is a default for all of our foster parents, to the amazing work we have partnered with our colleagues at Hunter College Silberman School of Social Work with the Division of Child Welfare. And so just let me provide you with a brief context of the size of ACS. In 2022, we had 6,746 staff. The median age was 45.6. The median years of service was 7.4. Out of those, that 6,000, only 5% is managers and 94% is staff. And so that talks about the importance of the work we do with the Silberman School of Social Work around improving the direct child care workers' capacity to serve with respect, transparency, and empathy the families and vulnerable children that come into our work, and then to work with our leaders in modeling those attributes, and then being data-driven and data-informed in our co-QI work. So the OTWD, as we're known, consists of 3 different entities: James Satterwhite, Workforce Institute, and the Institute for Leadership Development. They each provide ongoing professional development for our child welfare workforce. So in implementing a vision, what we looked at is 3 distinct areas: the impact on the workforce. As I stated, we have 6,000 workers, but that also does not include the contract agencies which we work with. We contract out all of our foster care and prevention services. We looked at a multi-pronged strategic approach. We look at building the capacity of child welfare staff and administrators through the use of coaching and evidence-based models. And lastly, we're committed to collaboration and partnership. We unequivocally cannot say how far we've come with this partnership. This partnership with Silberman has been the backbone of the work we've done. Our motivational interviewing coaching has been the foundational work, and they have helped lead that. And so we are very proud of the work we've done, not only collaboration with them, but with our contract agencies, our sister agencies. The work we do together is evolving child welfare, recognizing the traumatic experience that our efforts can have on families. So we're proud of this partnership, and we look forward to sharing our work with you today.
Thanks, Cheryl. Good afternoon, everyone. So just to focus for a minute on partnership, if you look at my background, it is that I'm coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York City. And so while I am the project director at Hunter, all of our staff are co-located in the borough offices. And so I think that really is an example of how ACS has, exemplified wanting to be in true partnership with us and being co-located in the offices of the communities that we serve really helps us to be deep in relationship. So this is a visual that our project uses to depict the transfer of learning cycle. And what's always interesting for us when we talk about transfer of learning is that we recognize it as being a dynamic and really fluid process, that it's not linear, and that we are always, although we talk about it being a parallel process as well, recognizing that supported staff members who were able to both integrate the knowledge and get support around the practical application of that knowledge, when they feel supported, that they in turn can support families, and that families support their children and youth, they ultimately benefit. So, a point that I want to just highlight is that leaders in workforce development, we recognize that it's critical to create a culture that really supports continuous and ongoing learning in the staff. So as a project, we demonstrate that in our supervision for our team members who are dynamic, talented, really committed folks. We offer them coaching so they can be engaged in reflection. Developmental feedback is a critical part of our practice in supporting our staff. And we also recognize the connection that learning needs to occur on multiple levels. So in the partnership, as I mentioned, we work really closely with all of our stakeholders because we understand that it's really them who are going to reinforce the learning culture and really create the space for innovative practices in their respective areas.
All right, so what we decided to do is to pick these few themes that will organize the reflection of both what we're doing and the way we're evaluating what we're doing and what results we've achieved so far and hope to achieve in the future. So we're going to separate the rest of the content in this webinar into a small segment on a major emphasis to increase the number of families who can be supported without a report of child abuse and neglect. And Cheryl will primarily speak about that. And then we'll also add onto that with some of the things that we've done to support coaching of that practice in the borough offices. We will move from there to a sort of a snapshot of some of the emphasis of learning that we've done around strength-based engagement and motivational interviewing with children, youth, and families. We'll talk about a major survey that we did with individuals who had attended some of the early learning programs on motivational interviewing and what they told us about how well it resonated with their work and might evolve into stronger partnerships with families. From there, we'll move into this, Alexis mentioned the parallel process, so supervisors coaching staff to build partnership with families, which is another level of the network that we think is crucial, is that as supervisors coach their staff to be critical thinking, to understand and make empowering partnerships with families, that's a crucial element in the reimagination of what child welfare services and systems can look like. And then from there, our newest initiative is an Institute for Leadership Development. So we'll give you a little bit of information about that and what some of the earliest participants are saying about the program and how they're using it to develop collaborative projects in the community. And then finally, at the end, we'll talk about more of a systems change, a shift in a culture around use of principles of safety science and a non-punitive approach to understand how well we're doing and when things don't go as planned, what we can learn from those issues. So Cheryl will talk to you about that. So before we go, just a brief snapshot. Those of you who may have worked in workforce development, this is sort of a standard framework that's used in workforce development. We use the New World Kirkpatrick model of training evaluation, where level one checks in with participants around their reaction to programs. And actually, I don't think today we're going to spend too much time on that. Level 2 checks in around people's knowledge, skills, attitude, and confidence and commitment to actually transferring what they've learned in those programs to the real world. And then we will give you some glimpses of some of our check-ins around level 2. Level 3 is getting closer to that actual transfer, at least how people report what they're doing, what behavioral change they're making in partnership with families and partnership in their agencies and in their communities. And level 4 is hopefully leading to much more systematic results for the child welfare system and the children, youth, and families. So you'll see little icons of level 2 and level 3 in particular as we weave in the results of some of our analysis into this program. So our work together, it's already been referenced a couple times. When we go to that first question around increasing the number of families who can be supported rather than reported, we'll be talking to you about New York City's differential response system called CARES. We'll give you a glimpse at our motivational interviewing partnerships, where we have evolved in both co-facilitating some of the earliest learning programs and then MI practice labs. We'll go to our coaching learning programs, our check-in with how well people are using coaching across public and private systems, and in particular, safety-focused coaching labs that we have implemented in partnership with the Division of Child Protection. And then at the end, my pictures, we'll talk about the Institute for Leadership Development with the foundation of safety culture. So we're going to start off here, and I just want to mention that Cheryl's going to lead us off here. We're going to first look at a glimpse of a video on our CARES initiative. And Cheryl, you just give me the hands up. Let me know when it's time to cut that off. We're just going to give you a little taste of that, and then she'll tell you a little bit more about the initiative.
So thank you, Diane. I think partly what we want to reiterate that the evolving nature of reimagining child welfare is really founded on two major premises that shapes OTWD. One is that child welfare, even with the best of intentions, can have a traumatic experience and have a traumatic impact on families. And two, that there's racial disproportionality in child welfare in New York City. And as a result of that, in conjunction with leadership at the state level, the Family Assessment Response is a state initiative that we here in New York City have moved forward tremendously, because 7 times the number of Black children are likely to be investigated than white children, and 5 times more likely Hispanic children. And a recent study estimated that 44% of the Black children in New York will experience an investigation before the age of 18. So we have wholeheartedly embraced the differential response. Alexis alluded to 5 boroughs that our staff is co-located in those 5 boroughs, her coaching team. And for those of you who are non-New Yorkers, New York City is broken into 5 boroughs. And so our CARES response, which is our differential response, our family assessment response, is geared at reducing disproportionality. And it also is as a result of efforts that we are trying to make to not penalize poverty. Poverty does not equal maltreatment. And so CARES is our way of helping families in need and not penalizing them. And so we would like to introduce you to our collaborative assessment response model.
When the Administration for Children's Services, ACS, receives a referral of possible abuse or neglect to a child, they look at the concerns in the referral and make a decision about which track it should be assigned to: an investigation or a collaborative assessment, response, engagement, and support, or CARES, also known as a Family Assessment Response, or FAR. The investigative track is more familiar to the public because it is how the system has operated since the 1970s. In this micro video, we will be looking at CARES, the other track. First, it is important to know that CARES is only considered appropriate for referrals where the concern in the referral does not indicate the child is in immediate or impending danger of serious harm. Examples of referrals that might be assigned to CARES are truancy, parent-child conflict, inadequate guardianship, as long as there is no encouraging of criminal behavior, and child drug or alcohol issues. CARES is one of the racial equity strategies that ACS uses to respond to the overrepresentation of African American, Black, and Hispanic, Latinx families in child welfare investigations. CARES seeks to provide a less intrusive response for many reports involving neglect for all families, including those who experience poverty, systemic racism, inequality, and economic injustice. An individual who engages with CARES following an SCR report will not have a finding that can be shared with an employer. Regardless of race and other identities, families are eligible to participate in CARES if they meet the response criteria. Although the CARES specialist continually assesses for safety of the child throughout the referral, the goal of the CARES track is to partner with the family to create lasting solutions. It is not focused on blame or labeling them, but seeking to understand their experiences and build on their strengths rather than their deficits. One aspect of the CARES process that supports this premise is when a referral is assigned to CARES, the family has the choice to participate in a CARES assessment or an investigation. They do not have the choice of meeting with ACS to explore the concerns, just the track that would best suit their family. This is done through a transparent conversation regarding the two tracks and exploring with the family which track they think best supports them in the process. The reason this choice is given is it starts building partnership. Also, through the CARES track, there is more engagement.
All right, so we're going to shift to CARES wraparound. Alexis.
Thank you. So we were fortunate to be able to work, we meaning the Hunter Project coaches. We have a supporting knowledge into practice, who we affectionately call SKIP coaches, who worked alongside the CARES coaches in really, with a goal to strengthen the use of coaching in the supervisory interactions. And we know, and we'll talk a little bit about that later when we look at some of the research associated, but we certainly know that the use of coaching helps to promote skill proficiency. So we called it the CARES Wraparound Program, and it was piloted in Bronx South a few years ago now. We basically have 3 sessions with the CARES supervisors. The SKIP coaches facilitate 2 of those sessions. We use group as the modality because we feel that it promotes peer learning, which is really critical to the process, because once we leave, peers have each other to help sustain good practice. And then, as you can see from the visual, we moved across the boroughs. So we pretty much implemented this project citywide. And the follow-up is that the SKIP coaches engage the CARES supervisors for 3 months post intervention.
All right, so just a really quick glance at some of our results in evaluating, getting feedback from the 41 participants who were part of the CARES wraparound results, that they had a significant increase in their confidence to apply coaching after completing the wraparound program, and that 95% of participants self-reported they would apply the coaching skills very often or almost always after completing the wraparound program, which is a really high number. And we know that sometimes we might exaggerate what our intents are, but that's why we're there, as you mentioned, as Alexis mentioned, it's not just like a one-time thing. We're available as an extended support to support and reinforce the continued use of coaching as part of the implementation. Because of that framework that we're really crucially emphasizing throughout, is that supported staff will eventually mean stronger families. So I'm going to do a quick brief introduction about the motivational interviewing learning programs. You can see we did many programs starting, I think, in 2016. The foundational course that included a practicum. We also had a course, we still do actually, motivational interviewing with investigative strategies that includes child protective specialists alongside NYPD officers. We looked at the families who were repeat customers in our child welfare system and had a special course targeting specific types of engagement for families who have seen us many times and might not quite believe this shifts in practice that we're attempting to do. And then also some special target groups, fathers who've been notoriously across the country less engaged than they should be with the child welfare system when their children are there, and also with young females. Following the foundational courses that you saw there, we did a survey of 1,355 people who had been part of at least the foundational course. 53% of them were ACS and 47% were from child partner agencies, either in foster care or prevention. And what we see is that in their answer to the question about how confident they are in the use of MI skills, they're rating themselves on average 9 out of 10. And the same thing with a commitment to use MI. So these are really crucial numbers for us, because if we really do want to shift the practice to have true partnerships with families, staff have to buy in that there's a reason that we're doing this, that families deserve to be the driver of the work that we do with them. They should be in the decision-making seat. So that was really important. But we also heard that they need more than what we can give them in those foundational courses. So we developed a series of MI practice labs and have implemented those in partnership with the Child Protective Services programs across the boroughs. And Alexis will, hold on a minute. I lost a slide here. I think that one's backwards. Okay, I'm going to have Alexis talk about the practice labs first, and then after that, we can talk to you about our results.
Thanks, Diane. So when we launched the practice labs, actually, I'm gonna back up and say that before we launched it, we spent an incredible amount of time in planning stage. And when we look at communities that we engage to see, if you think this is hitting the mark, it wasn't just our research people who are considered experts. It was communities that we impact. A parent advocate participated in the planning stage, who had been impacted by our system. We had someone who was doing the actual direct practice, a child protection specialist, as well as a leader from the Division of Child Protection. And so I just want to say that that was really an intentional way for us to really engage multiple levels of what we consider to be the community that would ultimately be impacted in some sort of way from the practice lab. So again, similar to the wraparound, we have launched in almost all borough areas. The practice lab focus on MI Spirit, which I think Diane started to allude to, has really been for us a big shift in how we envision being in partnership with the families that we impact. The ORs are a big component demonstrating that skill application, open-ended questioning as an engagement strategy, affirmations, evoking strengths, reflections, empathy, and summaries, which really focus on partnership and planning. So the practice labs are, we have 5 2-hour sessions, and the target audience are our child protection specialists, who are actually the ones who are investigating and working with families. Thank you. So here's a caption of the learning approaches. You know, we believe in adult learning theory, so we certainly don't stand up and lecture with people for 2 hours. There's lots of interaction. We have breakout activities. One of the things we do in the planning stage is also our leadership team meet with the leadership team that we're going to be engaged in, and we want to hear what are some of the case and family characteristics that your staff might be struggling with engaging. So an example of that could be workers in that zone may not be engaging fathers to the fullest. So we want to make sure that our real play simulation has a family that's maybe a father is in the family, or it's a single father, so that we can really be there to help guide how you would apply these skills in working and engaging fathers. We could be in a zone where they're experiencing challenges and engaging adolescents. And so then we would make sure that we have a real play that actually has an adolescent who's part of the family, and again, modeling how you would use these skills in engaging an adolescent. So there's also a critical component is that staff create their own transfer of learning plans, what they're going to work on for the next several months. And we do some follow-up because, again, our coaches are based in the boroughs working with them and their supervisors around what that follow-up looks like.
And so just briefly, this is just a glance at some of our results from the MI practice labs. Over 90% reported that they'll apply knowledge and skills almost always or very often. 94% particularly stated that they use open-ended questions that demonstrate collaboration with families. And 92% reported that they use strength-based summaries that accurately describe a family situation. So overall, both child protective specialists and supervisors report having confidence and commitment to using MI and other strength-based engagement skills with families, and that they report that since being part of the practice labs, that has been increased. And we have some breakdowns for those of you later who want to check out our statistics. So shifting now to our role with supervisors and using coaching, it's already been referenced, but we made a commitment early on, and I think this actually came from the mayor's office in the like 2013, 2014, about the importance of coaching in child welfare. So supervisor coaching definitely supports practitioners to build partnerships with families and to emphasize strengths and tailor approaches. And that is more than a one-size-fits-all. Our emphasis has been to build supervisors to use coaching as part of their supervision, where I know some systems have outside coaches or additional people. That may also be helpful, but we think supervisors are really the crucial link to strengthening the quality of our child welfare services and system. So I'm going to show you a very brief part of what we mean when we talk about supervisory coaching in this video. Looks like it's advanced. I don't know what's going on here. Hold on, give me a break. Try again. I'm moving ahead just in terms of time. But what you would have seen demonstrated here is a supervisor supporting a prevention worker who was going out to meet a family for the first time. And she reports being a little timid. She's prepared. She's gone through all the training. She's had her motivational interviewing training, and she wants to get support from her supervisor to make sure she's fully prepared before going out for the first time. So her supervisor draws from her understanding of what that first visit looks like, which the primary purpose is to make a connection with the parents and children. She imagines what the family may be experiencing with someone knocking on their door and entering their space. So she has a little practice around what that means to tune in to be in the family shoes. And then that continues on to her weighing the importance of also assessing risk and safety as part of that first visit. In 2016, the New York City Administration for Children's Services launched the first coaching learning program that was adapted from the Atlantic Coast Child Welfare Implementation Center's coaching in child welfare learning program. And since then, if you can imagine, 3,218 supervisors and managers have completed the program. So you practically, unless someone just started yesterday in that role, that means we have a large number of our supervisors and managers who have embedded coaching as part of their approach on a day-to-day basis. And we think we're finally at this place where we can begin to see this really making a difference in supporting our workforce in that parallel process that we've mentioned a couple times. So we did a survey to look at, I think, the first 1,200 or so staff, and I'm going to show you some of those results here. Hopefully this one will work. So you saw that one of the recommendations at the end of that video was to attend a coaching collaborative. We wanted to have an even more focused approach in our partnership with Division of Child Protection. So we developed a series of safety-focused coaching practice labs similar to the MI practice labs that you heard about. So I'm going to ask Alexis to give us a little information about those labs.
Thanks, Diane. So the practice labs, the safety-focused coaching practice labs, we have 4 2-hours. Again, they're very interactive. We're taking their supervisors in Division of Child Protection foundational knowledge about coaching and really integrating it to their day-to-day practice. So as the organization is making some commitment to move away from directive only supervisory interacting to really integrate coaching as a way to spark critical thinking and to spark increased objectivity in working with our families. We found that if we don't involve the executive level leadership in really being our planning partners, that this new way of shifting the practice won't work. So we don't call it a training, for example. We call it really a shift in how that particular borough wants to practice. We congratulate them in wanting to have us come in and implement a safety-focused coaching practice labs. We talk to them, to the executive level leadership, about what's your communication plan? How are we going to start to engage staff before we even come in around what the intent is, what you want to see shift in the practice? And so similar to the motivational interviewing practice labs, there's a lot of planning work that goes into play before we actually facilitate the practice labs. Right now, well, as you can see, thank you, over time, for years now, we've been able to implement it in different areas. Right now, we are currently in a borough that has an abundance of families living in shelters. And so we find a way to, again, use real play and simulation and integrate some of the characteristics and the demographics that we understand are occurring with that particular zone. So
our results, and again, apologize for the quickness of some of these results. We have other forums, actually, I meant to mention earlier that coaching follow-up survey will be presenting the predictors, both individual, organizational, and reinforcement strategies that predicted reported use of coaching at SWR in January. So if you'll be there, you can stop by and see our session. But of the people who completed the series, prior to matching the pre-post surveys, there were 120 participants after matching. There was significant, so we've got, at level 2, we have significant knowledge gained after participation. And we also heard that labs support supervisors to coach, and that feels a shift in practice supports a parallel process with children and families. We also saw that supervisors reported a higher confidence and commitment to using coaching, and particularly focused on safety, which is the sort of the crux of the process in child protection. And 75% reported that they'll use coaching skills almost always or very often after labs are completed, which was higher than the child protection self-report on that earlier survey that you saw in the little Powtoons video. So now we're to the Institute for Leadership Development, and Cheryl's going to give us a little overview of the vision for that, and I'll give you a glance at some of our early results.
Yes, thank you, Diane. One of the things we realize is that if you recall, if you ever left a job, most likely you left because of leadership and supervision. And so part of the work we undertook in 2022 was to develop and implement an Institute for Leadership Development. Our vision is to establish a a workforce of visionary and empathic leaders who navigate the challenges within New York City that has been highlighted by the work we're doing with the direct child welfare worker and supervisor. And our mission is support leaders both in public and private child welfare and juvenile justice in New York City. You'll hear a little bit more about our ability and our efforts to foster a psychologically safe work environment that embrace equity, transparency, and innovation. One of the things we realize is that our workforce is very complex, it's multi-generational, and our relationship with work changed in a post-COVID environment. And that requires a different level of leaders to inspire, motivate, encourage, and model what are the attributes we need to display with each other and our families. So we currently have 2 programs. We have executive coaching is for senior and mid-level managers and those who have impact. It's 7 sessions. We are basically the middleman for the executive coaching. We do not monitor the executive coaching. We're not involved in the executive coaching. What we do for our public and private leaders is pay for executive coaching, and we match them with a coach that they get to select out of 3 choices. They are matched with coaches, and then that coach is with them for a 7-month period. And then our LEAD program, Leading and Exploring Through Accountability and Development, is in conjunction with our Hunter coaches and trainers. Is an 11-month program based on the National Child Welfare Workforce Institute Leadership Competency Framework. In that, we in New York City have to be different. We added individual and group coaching, and part of the NICWE model, which we have expanded on, is that there is change projects that are introduced in the first week of coursework that is integrated throughout this 11-month period. And our goal there is to look at systemic issues that we can unpack that impact the individual, the leader, and our community. And how then do we develop a prototype that can address and provide solutions or working ideas on how to move our relationships forward and our work forward. So as I said, executive coaching is a program that we offer that has 7 sessions. They're an hour and a half. We're doing in conjunction with our evaluation team, post-evaluation surveys of the coaching program. Our first cohort, we had 61 leaders participate in the program. Our LEAD program, as I stated, is an 11-month program. We give 20 CEUs for New York State licensed social workers. And again, it's about providing leaders, not that they don't have the skills, but acknowledging that our workforce is changing, our ability to lead and involve in reimagining child welfare requires a new level of leadership. And so the program aims to elevate and advance that leadership capacity to move the system forward, to recognize the traumatic impact we have, and look at areas where we can improve and support our families without inflicting damage, harm on the children and families at their most vulnerable moments.
So Alexis, maybe you can give us an overview of the components.
Thank you. So right now we are entering our 2nd cohort where we have 30 leaders from ACS, Division of Child Protection, as well as other divisions within ACS, and leaders from our provider community. Also, we have a few people from the juvenile justice part of our agency. So I'm going to just pin the really integral part that Cheryl started to talk about, the coaching piece. You already shared there's a facilitation piece, There's pre-work that goes on, there's an orientation. Let me just say that we are learning from our cohort 1 prototype. Our leaders said to us, we want to increase the in-person time we are together. So we moved from having 3 of the 5 modules were virtual, and we flipped that. They wanted to see an increase. We decreased the number of virtual. They felt like we want to be in community with one another. And hence, group coaching sort of evolved out of that. Their verbalization that they want to be in greater community, both coming together as public child welfare leaders with the provider agency leaders. And that's really been a secondary goal that we had, to improve those partnerships. So the group coaching is really an opportunity for them to provide peer support and create peer connections. And we know that that certainly builds resilience that they need as leaders. So I'll talk a little bit about the change projects. The change projects are an integral part of the curriculum. They take the competencies and apply them. What we've done to help narrow them is we've taken 6 buckets, as we call them, which here look like circles, and they are based on our commissioner's fiscal year 24 strategic priorities. So underneath that, you know, if you're interested in sort of what it falls underneath that, you can reach out. We can certainly share with you. But I'll just share from cohort 1 what's really resonated for those leaders. And that has been safety culture, which, as Cheryl said, we'll talk a little more about that. So we have 7 of our leaders in cohort 1 who are engaged in change projects around safety culture. And I'll give you an example. One of the leaders, her goal is to create a work environment that fosters staff well-being and work-life balance, because there's an understanding that that impacts how staff interact with our families and communities. And I'll give an example of partnership and working alongside community partners. One of our provider agency leaders really wants to focus on creating an inclusive environment for birth parents by improving relationships and communication between birth parents and foster families and agency staff. So just a little bit about what's going on with the change projects right now. They're in their early implementation phase. The coaches help support them. We will also, as a broader organization, be giving them data that we capture to help support them. And December 13th will be the day that they talk and share with the broader child welfare, juvenile justice community on their change projects, and certainly will be supporting them with sustaining those projects over time.
So since attending lead, this is only based on our first cohort, which you've already heard a little bit about. We're getting early results, which are highly positive. 87% express being extremely or very confident in how they apply adaptive leadership skills after participating in the program. 100% said they strongly agree that awareness of how to guide their teams through change has deepened since being in the LEAD program. And granted, our first leaders were at the highest levels in our child care system. So they had years and years and years of experience. So we weren't 100% sure whether we could reach them with helping them strengthen their leadership skills. 100% of them also said they strongly agree that it has increased their insight into specific areas of their own personal leadership development. And 93% said they strongly agree that they'll be better able to adapt to the challenging situations that we always know will happen in child welfare since being in the program. And then this is just part of a dashboard that we create in Qualtrics that is longer than this. This is just a few of the results that we provide sort of as continuous learning to our teams. So we looked at how people are focused in on the results of participating in the individual coaching that they're getting as part of this. So you can see that people agree or strongly agree with almost every item on this assessment. Actively use adaptive leadership. I'm better able to develop my change project. I'm more prepared to meet challenges at work. I've strengthened my leadership style on the job. I'm better able to adapt with challenging situations. So it's the same things that I summarized in the earlier thing. But if you can imagine this as a much longer dashboard, there's also a first section that has a lot of the qualitative themes that came out of their report. So we look not only at the quantitative, but also the qualitative. And I think we're doing well with our time. So we're moving now to safety science, and I'll turn it to Cheryl.
Yes, Diane. And as Alexis talked about, our leaders are looking to advance psychologically safe workplace. And the safety science is not new to ACS. We've been undergoing this work for the last 5 years. So our vision is simple. We want to create a robust and proactive response to critical incidents that support a system dedicated to learning. We do this on multiple levels. One level is that just today, this morning, we have something called ChildStat with DCP, which is a learning environment where throughout the agency, we go over an active case and look at the strengths of the work that's being done, and also look at areas of opportunities for growth, coaching, and training, and supervisory support. We also did this by looking at our critical incident reporting, and we changed that relationship from fear to collaboration to trust. And we looked at it through the lens that there are systemic issues that lead to critical incidents, not just caseworker failure. We established an atmosphere where workers feel safe to report errors and vulnerability within the system without fear of retaliation. And another vision we have is to create an environment that explores with leadership solutions to looking at underlying systemic factors that impact the work that we carry out. So ACS has implemented and adopted a safety science approach, and we've embedded that work not only in DCP, but throughout our agency. And in the new year, we'll begin introducing the concept with our contract providers as well. They all have been embracing some form of safety science, but we're going to unify our views so that we can be in collaboration and partnership. So here's our road. We started in 2020. We had a launch in 21. We have a framework you'll see in a minute. We launched what we call local action teams, and really those are prototype teams that work within their division, their unit, their program area zone, and they develop areas where they would want to improve safety science or safety culture. We launched a survey in March that helped inform our work and our continual efforts, and we are actually in the process of relaunching a new survey in the new year. And we finalized that framework I referenced earlier. So in building our infrastructure, we in New York City looked at accountability. And so we have a variety of teams that help us promote accountability. It's a large-scale initiative. And so we have an advisory board, which we call governance, where most of our DCs and other senior leadership helps move the message out and help us create tools and guidance to help change behavior, because safety culture is not just a mindset, it's actions and behaviors that your staff can see and feel and know that they can trust you in times of trouble. So we have an implementation team, we have a core team, and the most important thing I want to say as we move to the next slide is safety culture is not saying that we're not accountable to best practice, to excellence, and to doing the work that we need to do to safeguard children and families. But what we are saying is that we are doing this work together, and we're creating an environment of trust, collaboration, and unity that supports the most vulnerable outside of the families is the workers who do this work every day, who is open to second guessing, not only from themselves, but from others. And so our mission is to support opportunities for growth, development, and continuous quality improvement, to advance equity, anti-racism, and inclusion, to foster a psychologically and physically safe work environment, and then again, that accountability to ensure effective services for children, youth, and family. And so that spells out safe. Again, when measuring safety culture with our survey that we initially did and we'll be doing going forward, we looked at these other key points: emotional exhaustion, stress recognition, workplace safety, connectedness, mindful organizing, psychological safety, and racial equity. And our framework is this. We have leadership, we have practice with families, community, relationship development, meeting, team buildings, performance improvement, organizational, and reviews. And we look at this on a variety of levels, the micro, macro, and meso level, to be able to determine where there are gaps in our work. We are in this process of now recognizing we want to move from, again, a theoretical approach to an actionable behavior that our staff recognizes. And so with that, we've in the process of creating for each of these elements tip sheets that help our leaders. We're also in the process of now holding individual consultation with each of our division, looking at their previous engagement survey and looking at their current needs, addressing the gap. And so, Diane, the next slide is, I believe, the relationship tip sheet. So we utilize documents like what we just created, which is the relationship tip sheet that helps us be able to then guide that leader in that conversation, not only around their immediate team, but then model for their team how to use that tip sheet, and then their team model with their team. And so we have that ripple effect of creating a trusting, psychologically safe and physical environment. And so this is our tip sheet, again, where, it talks about demonstrating relationship-focused leadership, promoting peer relationships, encouraging wellness. As Alexis stated, one of the leaders is looking at how to do that within their zone and division. From our Leadership Institute, and one of the things, we're doing so much work with our Hunter partners, but maybe we'll come back and talk about the work we're doing about onboarding, socialization of new staff. And so the welcoming of staff and creating a supportive environment for new staff is extremely important. And Lexis and her team is doing work through our other team around doing that work of supporting them, because we want to reduce our retention rate. We want to improve our retention rate and reduce our attrition rate. And so we recognize this job is hard. So all these tips are designed to do that. And lastly, implementation science. We have an expert who works with us, Dr. Allison Metz. We know that we go through and out these processes continuously, especially with a large organization like ACS. We can have one zone who's fully implemented and another zone or another division who has just started their work and they're in the installation stage. One of the things we work on is giving ourselves grace, because there's always change and change in leadership and change in relationship with staff that requires us to develop relationship with folks and may move us back or move us forward, but we recognize it's all part of the process of implementation science. And lastly, this is our journey. This is where we are now. We're looking for leadership sponsorships. We host safety culture forums. We have our governance team as our champions. We are expanding our local action teams. We're, as you saw, doing the framework campaign. promoting each of those elements, and we're working on organizational mapping. And we're introducing a new course that I alluded to that will come out in the beginning of the new year. And we're just expanding our work. We're recognizing that this is not a one-stop event. This is an ongoing event of evaluation, assessment, collaboration, and prototyping. It's not something that you get right, it's something you do right.
Right, and I think we're at questions with a little bit of extra time here.
All right, so I think that's when I come in, right? So
Should I
first
take
of
the
all,
screen off, do you think?
I'm
Does that-
sorry.
Should I take the screen off?
Oh yeah.
Yes,
That'd be
sure.
great.
Okay, that way people can see.
And yeah, just one more question has come in. Let me make sure I get this question too. All right. So the first question is first, thank you, Diane, Alexis, and Cheryl for just a really amazing presentation. And the work that you're doing is obviously exemplary and certainly work that should be modeled all around. So thank you for the incredible work. Okay, the first question is, there are a lot of questions came in, so I'm not sure we're going to be able to get through all of them. First one is, how can we ensure that leadership at all levels within the child welfare system is invested in workforce development for child care workers? How can we ensure that leadership at all levels are invested in the workforce development?
I'm going to punt to Cheryl.
Yes. So we have done a couple of things to ensure that. One, we create a culture of continuous learning. We have training requirements for all of our different disciplines. So we have training requirements for our foster care prevention and child protective and DYFJ, which is our juvenile justice staff. But mainly, I think it's not about having requirements, but it's about allowing for leaders and for themselves and for their staff to have time to develop and have time to invest in themselves. And so when we actually began our orientation for our Leadership Institute, we talked about this was a time to invest in yourself. And the analogy we like to use is that we have these expectations for our families to grow, to change, to meet the continuous needs of their children, to provide for the protective capacity of each of their children. We need that for our leaders. We need our leaders to be able to provide for the capacity of them, for their team, and they have to also protect themselves and invest in themselves so they can provide. So I think it's a mindset that comes from your leadership, and we are lucky enough under our commissioner to be able to reinforce that mindset.
Great. The next question is, you have had such a successful partnership here. What tips can you share about forming partnerships to strengthen workforce development efforts in child welfare?
I'm going to ask Alexis because I think she's the partnership guru.
Great question. I think Cheryl started to tap into that. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really first been about developing relationships with people. And how we do it, sometimes the development is not always in a formal program. It's also like how me and my team have started to be invited to some of the Division of Child Protection leadership meetings. And then through that, we're modeling actually how you go about coaching, how you integrate coaching. I think I'm responding to the question, but essentially getting buy-in on the leadership level is really critical to changing the practice. That is the critical piece, and that's really about building relationships. And also, I'll speak from DCP and our incredible partnership with them, because their work is so complex and complicated. It's really about us demonstrating that we're in there and really lifting up that value of what partnership looks like, right? So I hope I answered the question. I could go on and on
Yeah.
because I'm passionate
Yeah.
about it.
I think I would just add for us on the public side is picking the right partner. And we picked the right partner with Silverman. They're committed to the work. They're committed to excellence. Alexis and team work hard. And I think it has to begin with you modeling that respect, modeling that trust, modeling that vulnerability, and modeling that commitment to work. It doesn't mean that the partnership is always perfect, but it means that the partnership puts the work first before they put their egos. And I think that's what we have been able to model. And so there's a running joke that Alexis and I need to get a podcast called The Fighting Sisters. And so, so there you go.
Great, great. Next question. Do supervisors who play the role as coach receive ongoing coaching development? What continuing education do they receive?
So I think there's multiple answers to that question. So after we launched the coaching learning programs in 2016, by the end of maybe 6 months out, after we had a big cohort of people who had gone through that basic learning, we started a series of ways that they could come together to get support. And one of them was the coaching collaboratives that you saw referenced in that little short video. And then it's also through this ongoing individual coaching that is done in our deeper partnerships, like with the Division of Child Protection. So, and then some of our prevention programs have collaboratives sort of outside of the formal ACS system. And they also have opportunities to have monthly coaching, peer coaching across programs and within programs.
Just to follow up, was the question I had along the way. Do you incentivize participation at any level, or how does that work?
We wish. I'll give a shout out to Kansas because they took our coaching learning program and were able to implement it statewide. And because they're 100% privatized, their private agencies provided one of two incentives. Either people got bonuses if they went through the whole, not only the learning program, but the follow-up coaching, or they got raises that were sustained over time. But I think our incentive for people is really the peer support and commitment that we can give them. So we're in a system that probably doesn't have monetary support. We did provide a whole lot of swag at the beginning. That was like, people like to get things, like tangible little stress balls and those kinds of things. So we have less swag around, and now it's more of ourselves. We did hold pizza parties and other things like that, and we continue to be invited to ways of sharing community and sharing food and opportunities for sort of well-being sessions that sometimes they ask us to facilitate.
Got it. Got it. Do you use any peers, staff to work with families, and do they go through the same training?
So in I'm speaking outside of this partnership, but in the prevention contracted agencies, all of the prevention programs, regardless of whether they're under the family support bucket or another arm, each prevention agency is required to have either case aides or parent advocates as part of their team. In foster care, through another partnership with Silberman, we demonstrated the high value of parent advocates as partners with foster parents and biological parents. And that is now, based on the results of that research that was done on the pilot in multiple boroughs, that is now a requirement of all foster care agencies must have parent advocates as part of their foster care team. Yeah. So we really highly encourage parent advocates to be at the table. They're definitely partners with us, with ACS, in all of the policy changes, and they're a member of the Office of Training and Workforce Development Advisory Committee. It's a crucial part, I think, for continuously learning and listening. Or I
Yes,
should say
and
listening and learning.
we have in our first deputy commissioner's office a parent advocate group, and we in OTWD have trained the parent advocates and work closely with one of our stakeholders, RISE, and being able to provide that training and support continuously. That's Diane stated.
Got it. Got it. Okay. How would an organization ensure data-driven decision-making and accountability when collaborating with child welfare programs in regions with limited digital infrastructure?
So I don't think you always have to have like high tech to have listening circles, to have other ways of getting if a learning organization continuously gets feedback and uses that feedback. So that could be through a learning session. It could be through paper and pencil check-ins. It could be people putting smiley faces or thumbs down, so that you have an opportunity, even if you don't have high-tech networks in your jurisdiction, if you're in a rural community, I think you still can create the process for listening and growing and learning. And so constantly feeding into what we do now and what we do in the future based on that feedback. I don't know if anybody else have any other brilliant ideas, but those are mine off the cuff.
That's great. That's great. Next question. Has the implementation of this framework impacted staff retention, specifically frontline staff and supervisors?
So you're talking about the safety framework, I assume.
Yeah, I assume that too, yeah.
I don't know, what can we say about that? It's certainly something we have an eye on, but
Yeah.
I'm sure Cheryl might have some thoughts.
I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do a survey. Look at to be honest, the previous survey was done pre-COVID. We have not, we've done work in addressing some of the issues that was raised in that survey. And so that's why we've gone from a theoretical, which we spent time doing, to actually actionable areas of growth and development. But we will learn from our survey, hopefully by February or March. We'll let and share some wonderful results with you. And you also know that attrition is a complicated measure. And it's a complicated reason why people are leaving child welfare right now. A lot of it is about the length and time and the commitment of the job. It's a 9-to-5 job. And so some of it, safety culture can change. Being low salaries, safety culture can't change. And so some reality and balance there that we have to, there's other issues as leaders in child welfare we need to address to be able to move the workforce forward and to retain staff. And so we'll be doing some work to look at safety culture, but there are bigger issues that we need to look at as well.
Got it. Okay. I have one more question. I think this is like maybe the $100 million question. This is great work. What can you say about the ultimate question, which is, what is the impact on the population level?
Right.
of
So
all
that's
this
level 4 in our Kirkpatrick framework. At the moment, we're not quite there. We're getting reports from the staff around how well families are responding to the way that they're practicing. It's complicated in all jurisdictions, but particularly in a jurisdiction that's unionized, to get permission to have that direct family contact, which I hope that we do sometime soon. And meanwhile, we're looking at, through our quality assurance systems, we're looking at the quality of practice as it's reported and recorded in progress notes. And maybe through our RISE partnership, we can come up with a way that maybe RISE can help us with focus groups at the family level to help us understand what, if any, they've noticed, what differences they've noticed with the practice itself.
Yeah. And one last anecdotal, the new name for our family assessment response, CARES, actually came from a family. We had focus groups because we thought that family assessment response didn't really feel safe for the community. And so someone said, I felt like I was cared for when that worker showed up in a different manner, in a different tone. And so we're not quite there with the data, but if we get families saying that they felt cared about and valued when a child welfare worker showed up, I think we can count that as a success.
Absolutely. Well, with about 3 more minutes to spare, I think we'll begin to close this out. Is there any last comment from Diane, Cheryl, Alexis? Anything you want to leave us with?
Well, I just say that we appreciate the opportunity in allowing us to be part of this major initiative. We have been working together side by side for a while now, and it was good for us actually to be able to pull it together to try to conceptualize how we started, how we've evolved, and where we are, and what results we're seeing and would like to see. And so that was therapeutic actually for us to be able to do that. So we thank you for that. And I don't know, Alexis and Cheryl, anything you want to add in? They're saying no.
Thank you also. And yeah, it was a reflective process that
Thank you all. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Just want to remind everyone to sign up for our next open classroom. There's a link in the chat. Please follow it. And we really, really appreciate the great presentation today and all of the just great interest in this important work. So thank you all. I think there's something here, QR codes, yeah, so you can follow up accordingly. Peter, thank you so much. Thank you. Mary, thank you. Thank you all. Nicholas, Stephanie, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Oh,
Thank you, Dr.
Alex, thank
Lindsay.
you. Alex Maldonado, thank you as well. Yes, everyone. Appreciate you. All right. Be well.